I think we can all agree that life can be disappointing and frustrating sometimes, but I'd like to see if that's true. I have a couple statements, and if it's true for you, just where you are, raise your hand. Raise your hand if you've never experienced disappointment. Raise your hand if you've never experienced things going badly. Raise your hand if you've never been rejected. Raise your hand if you've never lost something valuable or precious to you. Raise your hand if you've never experienced sadness. Raise your hand if you've always had all of your prayers answered the way that you wanted them to be answered. Okay, clearly everyone has experienced disappointment, rejection, or unanswered prayers at some point. Here's one more question. Raise your hand if you've ever heard or thought that following Jesus would make everything in your life okay. There's a verse in the Bible, Romans 8:28, that tells us that in everything God works for our good. Some people interpret that verse to mean if you follow Jesus, everything's gonna be all right. But we know from our experiences that this isn't true. Even when we follow Jesus, we don't get everything we want. We still get hurt, bad things still happen to us, and things happen to us that frankly make no sense at all. Today I want us to take a look at Job. You may have heard about him before, but what I want us to do is read Job 1 to 2:10 and answer these two questions. So do this right now in your group. The two questions are, what kind of person does Scripture tell us Job is, and what just happened to Job and how did he react?
There are 3 books in the Bible known as the wisdom literature: Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Job. The first, Proverbs, showed us that God is wise and just.
Yeah, we learned that God has ordered the world so that it's fair. The righteous are rewarded, the wicked are punished. In other words, you get what you deserve.
But then we meet Ecclesiastes, who observes, people don't always get what they deserve.
Yeah, he said the world isn't always fair, that life is unpredictable and hard to comprehend, just like smoke.
And this makes you wonder, okay, well, is God wise and just?
Exactly. And so it's that question that is being explored in the final book of wisdom, Job.
All right, let's dive in.
So Job begins with a strange story that takes place up in the heavens, which are described something like a heavenly command center. So God is there with these angelic creatures called the sons of God, and they're all there reporting for duty.
And God points out this guy Job, his servant, showing how righteous and good he is.
And then one of these angelic creatures approaches. He's referred to in Hebrew as the Satan.
The Satan? Who is this?
Well, this word is actually a title, which literally means the one who is opposed. So out of this whole crew, he is the one questioning how God is running the world. And he proposes that Job might not actually love God, that he's only a good person because God rewards him. If God were to take away all of the good things he gave to Job, then we would see his true colors.
So he thinks Job is just working the system?
That's exactly right. Maybe he's obeying just to get what he wants.
So God agrees to this experiment and allows the Satan to inflict suffering on Job.
And Job loses everyone and everything that he cares about. It is devastating. And remember, he deserves none of this. God himself said so.
The remarkable thing is that in the midst of all this suffering, Job still praises God.
at least for chapters 1 and 2. But then in chapter 3, we find out how he's really feeling inside. He unleashes this poem that reveals this devastation. It's a long, elaborate curse on the day that he was born.
After this, some of Job's friends come to visit him to offer their help. And all of them are like, Job, you must have done something horribly wrong to deserve this. After all, we know God is just, and we know the world is ordered by God's justice and fairness, so you must be getting what you deserve.
And for the next 34 chapters, the friends and Job go back and forth in very dense Hebrew poetry. His friends keep speculating about why God might have sent such suffering, and they even start making up lists of hypothetical sins that Job must have committed. But after each accusation, Job defends his innocence.
And Job is innocent.
He is. He's also on an emotional roller coaster. At some moments, he's very confident that God is still wise and just.
Yeah, in other moments, he's doubting God's goodness.
He even comes to accuse God of being reckless, unfair, and corrupt. So by the end of the dialogues, Job demands that God come and explain himself in person, and God does so. He comes in the form of a great storm cloud.
Now, God doesn't give Job a direct answer. He doesn't tell Job about the conversation with the Satan.
Yeah, he does something very different. He takes Job on a virtual tour of the universe. He shows Job how grand the world is, and he asks him if he's even capable of running it or understanding it, just for a day. He shows Job how much detail there is in the world, things that we might see every day, but really don't understand at all. But God does. He knows it all intimately. He pays attention to the beauty and operations of the universe in ways that we haven't even imagined and in places that we will never see.
Then to conclude, God shows Job two wondrous beasts and brags about how great they are.
Yeah, they are dangerous. I mean, they would kill you without even thinking about it. And God says they're not evil. They're actually a part of his good world.
And then that's it. That's God's whole defense. It's kind of weird. I mean, what was this all about?
It seems to be this. From Job's point of view, it looks like God is not just. But God's perspective is infinitely bigger. He's dynamically interacting with a whole universe of complexity when he makes decisions. And this is what God calls his wisdom.
So Job asking God to defend himself is actually kind of absurd.
He couldn't comprehend this kind of complexity even if he wanted to.
So where does this leave us?
Well, it leaves Job in a place of humility. He never learned why he suffered, and yet he's able to live in peace and in the fear of the Lord.
But that's not where the book ends, because after this, God restores to Job double everything he had lost. And this, again, is surprising. I mean, is this a reward? Is God saying, congratulations, Job, you passed this elaborate test?
No, I mean, the whole book just made the point that Job losing everything was not a punishment, and so now getting it back isn't a reward.
So why does he get it back?
Well, apparently, God, in his wisdom, decided to give Job a gift. We don't know why. But what we do know is that Job is now the kind of person who, no matter what comes, good or bad, he can trust God's wisdom.
After all of that, God didn't even answer Job's question. Job wanted to know why so many terrible things happened to him. God answered, but not in the way that Job expected. Job asked why. God said, I'm the creator of everything. I'm bigger, greater, and more powerful and kinder than you could ever imagine. And you are so small compared to me. Job did not get the answer he was looking for, but he did get an encounter with the creator of the universe, and that was enough for Job. If you're dissatisfied with how this story ends, I get it, me too. I used to feel that way. To be honest, I still do sometimes. When horrible things happen, I still want God to tell me why they're happening. It's hard to have faith when you're experiencing something difficult that you can't understand or explain, and that is okay. That's the point of Job's story. Now, in Job's story, we can learn something important about our questions and our doubts, and that our questions don't always get answered. Let's talk about this. And as we do, please be sensitive and kind to each other, knowing that this is difficult subjects for many of us. And please try to be honest, but don't feel pressured to share. At the end of Job's story, God restores Job's life by giving him double of everything he had before. But that doesn't take away the pain and the suffering Job experienced. Let's return to that passage we mentioned earlier. The one people sometimes think everything will work out just fine. Let's read Romans 8:28 together. And we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them. This verse doesn't mean our lives will eventually have a happy ending, like the end of a sitcom or our favorite Disney movie. When we experience pain and heartache, when we experience things in our life that seem meaningless and really terrible, maybe a pandemic, the hard truth is that our questions don't always get answered, but God can redeem what we've suffered or lost. Everybody take a second and say the word redeem with me. Ready? We're gonna say it 3 times. Just say it with me. Ready? Redeem, redeem, redeem. Okay, what do you think it means? Take a second and kind of like brainstorm with your group. To redeem something is to reclaim, repurpose, restore, or regain it. Like Job, sometimes we lose a lot, but redemption means our stories don't end there. See, there was this one time, like a bunch of years ago, I was working the summer as a beekeeper of all things, saving money for college and getting ready to like go back for my next year. I was doing the night shift, and it was actually at a portion of the summer where we transitioned from day shift to night shift. And one day I woke up feeling terrible. Went to work and didn't think too much of it. And the next day I was even sicker, so I called in sick to work. I spent the next day waiting to be diagnosed with appendicitis. Initially, the way that they had planned to do the surgery had like with the laparoscopic things and whatever else, had me out of surgery and recovered in a couple days, maybe a week or 2. But as things got worse, they needed to change how they did the surgery. And when I woke up from the surgery, I was in intense pain and ended up staying in the hospital for like 5 days and then spent even more time, months and months, recovering from the surgery. I was devastated. Not only could I not work for the rest of the summer, meaning no savings for college, but the recovery from the surgery put me in a place where I ended up needing to recover for almost half a year. I was completely dejected. I felt so alone. I was so angry that God would let this happen to me, and it didn't make any sense. I was so hurt. And to this day, I'm still not super sure why I had to go through all of this. But you know what? We may not be able to avoid pain. We may not be able to fix it. We may never even know why it happened, but here's what we do know. God promises to redeem our stories so we can know God better, help others and make the world a better place, and become more like Jesus. If you find yourself suffering seemingly without reason, I hope you won't take the advice of Job's friends. Instead, I hope you learn to trust that knowing the God who made you is even better and more important than knowing why. We may not know how everything is going to work out, or even if it will work out, but even when we don't have every answer to every question, we can still have faith in our Redeemer, and that is good news.